Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Pearl video. On the last video you've seen me working on the deck, planking the deck or cutting the openings for the companionways and for the grating. Here's how everything looks at this point. Now I'm gonna start weathering the deck and placing it on the ship. I hope you all enjoy it. Leave a like, leave a comment, please consider subscribing. The weathering process is the same that I've done on the previous two decks. I start by staining. I'm using a dark stain. I believe this one is walnut stain, as long as it's dark. You will notice, as you've seen on previous decks, because the planks are very thin wood, some of the glue has seeped through it and the stain doesn't take on every surface, but because of the next steps that are done, that doesn't really matter. The next step is to start sanding. The point is to lose some of the brown, because we are looking more to have grayish tones. Using sandpaper and fingers, not sand blocks, to have a bit more variety, to not go through all the stain exactly the same way. If you use the sand block, I'm leaving more brown on the edges to have the final result be darker there, and I just go around. I try to focus a bit on the areas that didn't stain too much to make them a bit more uniform with the rest of the deck. Now the next two steps are what will bring the grayish color to make it look weathered. I'm using a graphite stick and I'm using a blade to scrape the graphite into the deck. This works with graphite. If you have a bit of charcoal, it will also work. Even a piece of burnt wood, it can be reduce it to dust and it will work the same way that the graphite is working. Once everything is covered with some graphite dust, it's time to get your hands dirty. I've done this with paper, but honestly nothing seems to work as good as rubbing the graphite with the hands. Just rubbing it until everything has a uniform tone to it. At any point this can be adjusted, or add more graphite if it's to make it darker, or sand it a bit if it's to make it lighter. The final sanding, this is to introduce again some variation, to not have everything with the same tone, and I'm using 60 or 80 grit sandpaper. The rough surface helps with the next effect, and I don't see any need to have a very smooth surfaces on the deck when we are going for a weathered look. Now I'm applying a very generous coat. Sometimes I will apply a second one. This is isopropyl alcohol and Indian ink. 200 milliliters of alcohol and 50-60 drops of Indian ink. From every time I tried this and I tested, it seems that the black pigment of the Indian ink ends up settling a bit better if there's grooves on the wood, if it's not extremely flat, and it gives a better look. And in this case, this is something else to bring up some gray on the wood. Now, you might remember when I did the previous deck underneath this one, and I've done the openings, I realized later that the openings for the stairs, the way I made them, based on the drawings for the opening of the top deck, created a problem. The stairs that go from this deck to the bottom deck end up on an opening. The opening is too big. And I've mentioned back then that I would have to make some sort of landing to put over the opening, so that the stairs going from the top deck to the middle deck will have some place to stand. So that's what I'm doing now. Before putting the deck on the ship, I'm gonna prepare the landing for both of the companionways. I'm simply cutting some strips of wood. I took the measurements. I'm gonna glue them together, add some feet to it to have it raised, and this will be where the stairs going from the top deck to the middle deck will land. I've used a bit of stain and sanded, then used the isopropyl alcohol with Indian ink to bring up a bit of grey, and they are simple to weather. They just need to look a bit older, and now I'm going to glue them over the companionways that go from the middle deck to the bottom deck. Meanwhile, I also 3D printed some frames to put around the LEDs, same way I've done on the bottom deck. I'm gluing them, I'm placing them around the LEDs, and then a bit of glue to secure. Just make sure that this stuff is done before placing the deck, otherwise it will be much harder after the deck is in place. At this point, everything is ready on this deck. It will be covered. It will never be able to be seen like this again, so a little tour out of everything that was done on this deck before gluing the top deck. And finally, preparing everything to glue the deck. I'm using gel CA glue on some spots, like to have a bit more time of work. Then I compensate with the regular CA glue on other spots. The deck is glued. Somewhere in the process I lost a plank there in the middle. I'm simply correcting the problem, gluing a new plank and using a bit of sandpaper. I sand it to make it flush, and I sand a bit around to generate a bit of this grey dust, and sand over, and the grey dust will change the tone of the other one, making it look like the ones that are around it. This is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please do consider subscribing. I hope to catch you all on the next one.